Welcome into another edition of New Track Record. Caleb Hatch and Justin Kinney with you. And boy, did we have the news week for this week.
Yes, we had some stuff.
We have news in F1 as it pertains to IndyCar. Shocking news in F1 that just, I think, pertains to everyone in motorsport that no one saw coming. And we have some driver announcements in IndyCar. We have a puppy story that's just wild in IndyCar to get to from the Rolex 24. All that to say, Josef Newgarden, part of the winning team in the Rolex 24 with Penske Porchse Motorsport. So there's just a lot
to get to. Nothing necessarily pertaining to the actual season itself, but a lot to talk about nonetheless.
So let's begin. And of course, I think the biggest story, and yes, it's an F1 story, but obviously with ties to IndyCar, Michael Andretti's bid for an F1 team to start in 2026, rejected by F1. Now the FIA saying that they're engaging in dialogue to determine next steps, again, because the entry was approved by the FIA, but not approved by Formula One. Not that I guess we should not have seen this coming, but the Andretti Cadillac bid, I don't think you could have asked for more. I think it's very clear that F1 doesn't want to dilute the pie from 10 teams to 11 teams. It's pretty simple.
They came up with a half-assed response to it about competition and whatever, but we know what it's about. It's all about the money. And while they said, hey, we're not shutting the door on it to wait till 2028, when the buy-in cost goes up exponentially, I'm sure, with the new Concord agreement.
$200 million to potentially $600 million.
So it's not surprising. We had heard talk that maybe the bid had a little bit more of a chance than most expected, but in the end, Formula One wasn't going to let this happen. Not with Formula One teams more than Formula One. And now for Andretti to get into the sport, it's going to take buying into an existing team of some sort. And if Haas continues to struggle, maybe that's an opportunity in the years down the road, but that's really going to be their best bet. Now,
the excuse is, well, there's no, works engine. GM will have that ready in 2028. That's the excuse. But the status of Andretti's application, and some of these quotes are just absolutely hilarious. Like this one. While the Andretti name carries some recognition for F1 fans, our research indicates that F1 would bring value to the Andretti brand rather than the other way around. You're only talking about one of the two most accomplished drivers in American motorsport history, along with AJ Foyt, and probably perhaps the biggest name in racing who transcends racing, being the Andretti name. I mean, the dude's in rap songs, right? I mean,
but he's
a Cars character.
But okay? You're talking U.S., though. I mean, yes. I will give Formula One. Yeah, I can't speak.
But he's a former F1 world champion.
I know, but I can't speak to how people feel about Mario Andretti in Spain and Germany. I mean, I think everybody knows who he is. I don't know if it adds the value worth diluting the pie. That's all they have to say, but they're not going to say that.
Well, and they go on to say that our assessment process has established that the presence of an 11th team would not, in and of itself, provide value to the championship. Again, it's hilarious. Now, again, they say they look at it again. If you're Andretti, I mean, do you just move forward? I mean, what do you do?
Well,
because the FIA is saying they're going to try to go back and figure things out. And again, it's tricky because I don't know on a legal perspective what can be done. Because yes, Liberty,
I mean, they're screwed.
Liberty is an American company, but this is European law. And so I don't know how that works because antitrust is basically U.S. law. So I don't think that's a play here, and I have no idea, and I'm not going to dive into that aspect. If someone is an expert, feel free to reach out to us on that. But I don't see a way for them to get anywhere and to waste millions of dollars on a legal battle unless the FIA is paying for it on their behalf is not worth it.
Yeah, and it's like, do you really want to get into Formula One via the courts? Doesn't really sound like.
Well, they weren't welcome anyway, so what would it matter?
True, but I mean, that's the thing. There's two things that stand out to me. A, there is Michael Andretti could have went about this better. But in the crazy world, behind the scenes world of Formula One, sometimes you have to be aggressive and step on some toes to try to get what you want. And unfortunately for Michael Andretti, that didn't work out. I do think the most important aspect of this potential commitment to Formula One was getting into Formula One with the Andretti name for Mario before he passes away.
Yes.
And Mario seems like a dude that's going to live forever. Vibrant guy, even as old as he is, but he's not going to. And I think it's become personal for Michael Andretti to try to get back into Formula One, the Andretti name back into Formula One in some capacity before Mario passes on. And unfortunately, at least in the near term, that doesn't look like it's going to happen.
And the fact that this has been delayed just a couple more years as far as when they could even, consider. That's the part that I really struggle with from a personal level, like you mentioned, because it means a lot. And Mario just saying on social media, he didn't even know what to say. Like, he doesn't really have the words. And the kicker and all the quotes from F1 and all the statements was this one. It was, the most significant way in which a new entrant would bring value is by being competitive. We do not believe that the applicant, Andretti Formula Racing LLC, would be a competitive participant. Ha! Well, you could say that for pretty much the entire field.
Outside of Red Bull.
Outside of Red Bull. I mean, you think VCarb, the Visa Cash App Red Bull F1 team, is competitive, or Williams, or Haas?
Or Haas, yeah.
Or Stake F1 and all these, legendary brands that F1 has, like those, over the Andretti name, which is recognized globally in motorsport as one of the preeminent names in motorsport. That's why I just find all this stuff to be so hilarious that they do this dog and pony show. And this is the conclusion. Yes. Is it expected? Yes. But just the way that the releases were so scathing on the process, it felt personal.
And part of that, I think, maybe was the fact that Michael Andretti rubbed some people the wrong way within Formula One with how he was going about things. And I think, if anything, this was a power play within Formula One to be like, we'll show him who's really in charge. And boy, did they.
Yeah. And again, because GM's not going to be a factory team coming in with Cadillac right away. They even had a deal set up with Renault. It's just, all of this is hilarious. It's frustrating. And if you're an American F1 fan who is looking forward to this, I mean, one, I'd be surprised if they move forward on this unless the FIA is going to do something to try to change this outcome. But then also, you can pretty much rule out Colton Herta ever having an F1 ride.
Right.
Kyle Kirkwood, too, with that. It's all very frustrating.
It's frustrating, but not altogether surprising, unfortunately. And you have to wonder, if do we even get this far in terms of the bid if GM isn't part of it? Because I feel like Formula One, whether you agree or not, values General Motors in its sport more than it does the Andretti name. And I don't think they're necessarily wrong with that, about that assessment, but just consider that's probably why this process went as long as it did, is because Formula One would love to have GM. And was it Williams that offered? We'd like to partner with.
Yeah, of course,
GM.
Other teams wanted to steal GM away from Andretti Cadillac.
But as we know, GM said it's Andretti or nobody for us.
So all that to say, this whole thing just felt like a charade. Now, F1 also put out a statement saying that they offered to have Michael Andretti meet with them, I think, in December. But at that point, it was probably already clear internally that this would not be approved.
Yeah, I don't know if this is surprising to the Andrettis. They probably knew this was coming. And quite frankly, unfortunately, not surprising for us either.
Yes. Frustrating with how it played out and how just scathing and bitter and vindictive F1 seemed
just like
to be
wrong
in their response.
But that is what it is.
Yes. And again, you can run through the list. Autosport had a great tweet going over the accomplishments by Andretti's in motorsport. F1 World Championship, 12 F1 wins, 18 F1 poles, 20 F1 podiums, 6 Indy 500 wins. Again, this is including team ownership, a Daytona 500 win, 9 IndyCar titles, 4 Indy Lights titles, 2 Daytona 24 overall wins, 3 Sebring wins, a Pikes Peak win, 3 NASCAR wins, a Le Mans 24-hour class win, The list is so long, and I guess I just find the argument to be so silly. Plus, let alone Andretti's the reigning Formula E world champion. Let's not forget that as a team.
Mm-hmm.
That's an accomplishment that they have on a global motorsport series
within an FIA sanctioned series.
So it's not just the IndyCar team or the other teams that they have. Like Formula E has had success at the top level. So it's all comical, and now you just wonder what the next steps are. Do they pursue things moving forward after FOM, Formula One management, made that decision? Obviously, the FIA and Liberty Media are very much on board with Andretti joining. So, I mean, they go to bat with them, but it's fascinating. I mean, Chris Medlin has a good write-up on Racer.com saying that, sources indicate there's nothing personal against the Andretti bid. It sure seemed personal, though.
At least with some of the comments, right?
The GM connection is what has kept the door open for 2028, as you talked about. So that's the one thing that GM would be a obviously massive, valuable addition. They've never competed in Formula One before. Ford's coming back, so GM is certainly interested in competing against Ford in the coming years. This is good in the sense that, yes, they'll have more time. The bad is, of course, the Concord agreement, and will they still have the money? Now, it's understood that the money is there.
That's not a problem.
Been seen to be an issue. It's just, will they want to go through this process again after how this played out this time?
Looking at how this affects Andretti's IndyCar effort, which we know has been lacking in recent years, do you see any effect? Does Andretti redouble their efforts in IndyCar? Do they invest more? Blah blah blah. Do you see this happening? Affecting anything?
This to me feels like a completely separate thing, and the element of that where, I mean, I saw a story that came out before all of this going down this week that they had already put together a 60% scale car, and they had apparently 100 employees working on it. A lot going into play on this project. They first look at the car in the wind tunnel, team size over 120 people. They have a full size chassis that was planned for mid part of this year. GM's involved. This was right before, of course, F1 said no. So now you just wonder, where do they go?
Yeah, do they keep developing that stuff? I don't know. I really don't. I think it's all about Michael, and if he thinks going at it after it in 2028 is worth it. If it's waiting out an existing team, I think the most likely one right now would be Haas, but they don't seem anywhere imminent to selling.
No, and that's the obvious choice that people talk about. And talk about being competitive or not. Obviously, Haas is not competitive, but Haas does not seem interested in selling.
Would he be interested in selling a share to Andretti?
I don't know. I mean, Haas is, why would he give up total ownership?
Well, to further invest in the series, because we know that Haas is outspent by the majority of teams in Formula One. A cash infusion could help them tremendously.
True. I'd be surprised they'd have to end their relationship with Ferrari as well. And I don't know how interested they would be with that.
And I think Gene Haas is a stubborn dude.
Yes.
I think he wants to prove that he can do this with his money, with his team. And I don't think he's interested in sharing the limelight right now. But right now you're in the limelight for all the wrong reasons. The last place team in Formula One.
Yes. And again, money talks, and in F1, they didn't want to give up the money on what they believe is a cheap dilution fee. That the problem is, this just feels so short-sighted by F1, where you have an F1 fan base that is engaged and interested in your product, more popular than F1's ever been before in America. You have 3 races. You would have a true American team, and I understand Haas F1 is an American team. They've never had an American driver, and this would be a way to get a popular name. You would have a team that you would think would come in and be mid-pack right away, that has a lot of investment. It's not just one guy throwing a bunch of money at it like Gene Haas is, right? That's the difference. So this is in a team that could get you in front of a lot of people because of Mario and Michael. I mean, it's obvious in that aspect. So It feels short-sighted, and F1 is undergoing a fad here in the U.S., and my guess will be this getting pushed back. Will people even care about F1 in 2028? In 2026, people will stay on board because they'll have something to care about with an American team coming in and an American engine coming in as well with Cadillac. But now, why should American fans stick around? I mean, the Drive to Survive fad was never going to last long term. So they've added more races, and Liberty is promoting, and Vegas. We thought it'd be this outright disaster, and it turned out to be a success, even though it's still going to be at 2 a.m. in the morning later this year. So, what's next? Because all of this, from an American F1 fan perspective, is very negative.
Yeah, I don't know how many casual Formula One fans in America, which I think there are more casual Formula One fans in the United States than there are NASCAR casual fans in terms of the percentage of the fans that follow the sport, let alone IndyCar. I just don't know how it's affecting the everyday casual Formula One fan in America. But I think it does hurt you in terms of raising your profile and potentially to more Americans as you continue to grow the sport in America. And you would think if that's your most important market, and that said, Liberty Media, who is an American company, said they wanted Andretti in. This basically just comes down to not wanting to share money. And whether it's short-sighted, whatever, you're talking about a lot of money that's divided between 10 teams, and they don't want to divide it into 11. And I understand their sentiment, but it's pretty short-sighted.
Yes, and I think they will regret this decision down the road because they won't have the American investment. Again, as a lot of people have pointed out on social media, F1 just wants American sponsorship and dollars, but they never wanted true American investment in an American team.
No, they didn't really. They just want to...
They want to siphon the money out of the U.S. while they can.
Yes, and then bank and not share it. But it's kind of the sport. We kind of understood that none of this is surprising, like we've said.
Yes, and that's just kind of the reality of where things are at. All right, so we move from F1 to IndyCar, and I don't even know where to begin as far as a secondary story because there are just so many things. I think the biggest thing we'll get to, we have some driver announcements. None of this is a surprise in terms of the drivers and the team. What is a surprise is the partnership. Conor Daly, Ryan Hunter-Reay, long been rumored to race for Dreyer Reinbold. Well, Dreyer Reinbold and Cusick Motorsports pairing up together, but again, no Stefan Wilson. So it'll be Hunter-Reay and Conor Daly in those cars. Cusick Motorsports will be a partner across both entries, so this will once again be a team you expect to compete and have a chance. I mean, Hunter-Reay last year finished 11th and had, I think, some sort of aero issue, but he was running probably top 5, I believe, or had a chance.
He was up there, yeah.
So this will be an interesting team to watch. As far as the one-off teams, we think they can truly be competitive, and with both those drivers, they'll have as good of a shot as anyone.
Two guys that have shown speed at the Speedway. Ryan Hunter-Reay, of course, has won the Indianapolis 500, so a good duo, I feel, for the Speedway. I think the biggest question is now what happens to Stefan Wilson, because he was really attached to that potential Cusick entry. Now with Cusick partnering with Dreyer and Reinbold Racing, where does that leave Stefan Wilson? And as of recording this show right now, we haven't really got an answer.
Yeah, and for Wilson, I mean, here's what Cusick said in a statement. I'd like to thank Stefan Wilson for kickstarting this adventure back in 2021. Stefan's contributions and commitment has been second to none. He will forever be an integral part of our journey. We'll support him however we can for the future. Well, just not with a ride. Yeah,
just not with a ride or much of anything. But now Stefan Wilson could go talk to Benjamin Peterson about how it feels to be left behind, especially.
Yeah,
potentially.
It's all unfortunate, but that's the nature of business.
That's how this thing works. That's how auto racing works. It's unfortunate for Stefan Wilson, but a greater opportunity presented itself with, let's be honest, two guys that have been better at the Speedway than Stefan Wilson. And to that, you can't really blame Cusick for going with this partnership.
No, you cannot. And that's just the reality where things are at. So that was big story number one, and we'll see how that plays out. Taking a look at other news as far as across the grid. Long rumor that Takuma Sato would be the fourth entry for Rahal Letterman Lanigan Racing. Apparently that may not be the case. Tony Donahue putting a rumor out there, Sato could return to Coyne, not Rahal, and Sato could do the ovals in 2024. So something to keep in mind as far as driver movement. That was really the only driver stuff we had in the last week. The other note is some engineer stuff that Marshall Pruitt had in the mailbag on Racer.com. Eric Cowden is going to Ed Carpenter Racing. Has not heard anything about Craig Hampson returning to racing. That's interesting.
Right.
After he left McLaren. Then Alan McDonald at Juncos Hollinger Racing. He was at the Homestead Test. So there's your update as far as silly season stuff. Not very silly in the last week. We're still just waiting on Coyne.
Yes, so not too crazy. And, every engineering hire for a team is a better hire than what they had last year. That's just that time of year when everybody's trumping that narrative. So we'll see exactly what all these changes mean behind the scenes once we get to St. Pete and beyond.
So we have 32 confirmed entries with 32 drivers for the Indianapolis 500. We're waiting on 2 from Dale Coyne Racing. And then it comes down to a third AJ Foyt and a fourth Rahal Letterman Lanigan Racing entry. And that's basically it, right? That's
with Cusick off the radar now. That's kind of where we're at. So you thinking right now? I'm thinking 35.
I am too.
With Cusick partnering with DRR.
I think we'll see. Both Coyne entries. Could we see a third Coyne? I doubt it. It also comes down to their Chevy having more engine availability. But if Sato is a third entry, which I don't think he would be, I think it would be one of those 2 entries, at least for the Indy 500. It's a possibility, but I'd say 35 seems more likely than 36, but 36 is definitely still possible.
Still possible, still plenty of time, but I'm kind of looking at that 35 number as being it. And just because Chevy has the engine leases available doesn't mean they're necessarily going to use them.
And that's always been the case.
Yes.
So
got to knock their socks off with something.
Yeah, that's a factor to keep in mind. All right, and then the other big headline story that before everything that happened in F1, and of course we didn't even mention Lewis Hamilton going to Ferrari, which was shocking and came down earlier this week. What happened to the Rolex 24? And unfortunately...
Well, not even in the race.
Yeah, we're not talking about things that happened in the race
out of the
itself.
Parking lot, apparently.
Yeah. So you had a crash on Saturday involving the safety car and 2 individuals injured in that. Then you had this. Devlin DeFrancesco's dog, Lucky, was hit by Chip Ganassi.
In the RV lot, correct?
Yes, in the bus lot over the weekend at the Rolex 24 at Daytona. A lot going on with this. Chip sent out a statement.
People describing it as a chaotic scene.
Yes. And Devlin DeFrancesco saying, thanking to Ganassi for his apology. But this wouldn't, completely go away because, well, you have Chip's daughter, Tessa, who, again, hadn't tweeted in like 9 years,
right?
Basically.
First tweet since 2015.
Yes. Going scorched earth, and this has since been deleted. So I am doing my best to find the original post, but this has turned into way more of a story. I mean, first it became Devlin DeFrancesco's dog, a puppy, Lucky, got hit and killed by a vehicle in the bus lot, and Jenna Fryer got pounced on by people on social media. And
for no reason. I don't understand why.
I didn't understand as to why, because Devlin had also posted about it. It's not like it was a secret. But then you had, people attacking her. Then it comes out, Chip Ganassi's the one who hit Devlin's dog. Well, that obviously is certainly a story that you can't just ignore when a fellow IndyCar team owner is the one who struck the dog. And then you have the post, which was since taken down, and again, I am efforting to find.
So it's basically like he hates animals. was basically what she was saying. Said something about a case where he hit at IMS one year, hit somebody with a cane, hit a man with a cane. He always drives like a bat out of hell out of the parking lot, apparently.
Here it is.
All right.
What a joke. He hates animals, like when he let my dog out the front door onto a main road in the snow at night with no leash when I was 8 and called me brain dead for not bringing a house key with me when I ran outside in the snow to get her. He always pulls out of the track like a maniac, like pulling out of IMS when he hit into a man walking with a cane. Then the guy shattered my dad's car window with the cane, and my dad just kept driving. Feels remorse for absolutely nothing. I promise you, throwing money at the situation per usual.
That's his daughter.
Yes. At least believed to be her account, which
sounds
I believe it was based on the posts that we saw and everything.
Sounds like there's deeper issues. She changed her account
to private. There's just seems like family drama, I'm sure.
Yep, that's here's my take. And I told you this. Two things, because I never know. Like, was the puppy on a leash? The puppy was on a leash. That's a problem.
Yes.
Okay, leash up your dog. So that's Devlin's fault if that indeed was the case. And then of course Chip just driving like an idiot. So they're both to blame if indeed the puppy was off its leash. If he was on his leash, then it's all on Chip. But you know, I guess when we're looking for anything to talk about, this captured a lot of people's attention over Rolex 24 weekend.
And again, this is Chip's daughter. Like, this is only, one of his daughters. She's pretty private. And again, her accounts are private again after that statement and all of this. But it's unfortunate. I can't even imagine running over a dog.
Right.
In not feeling devastated about that for the rest of my life.
Really bad about it. So, I don't know if I would take it to that level. I mean, it would suck to kill a dog. I don't think it's staying with me for the rest of my life.
Now, there's the aspect of, like you said, did the dog just dart out in front of the car and there's nothing you could do?
Right.
I mean, there's a big difference between something like that and
that's a key
striking the dog.
Key part of the story that we're missing was the dog on a leash or not? And that changes my opinion of a lot of things, depending on if he was or not. So it's kind of where I'm at with the situation. It's just bizarre between that and the Rolex 24 that really wasn't the Rolex 24.
Yeah, we didn't even get to that aspect. It was the Rolex 23 hour and 58 minutes because, well, IMSA admitted that they threw the checkered flag early.
And people were like, it's not that big of a deal. There wasn't any close races on track, but still, it's the Rolex 24. Is the Indianapolis 500, the Indianapolis, 499, but, Scott Dixon's leading by 10 seconds, so whatever. I mean, if that was the case, then there's certain people that would love to be driving in the Indy 499, if that was the case.
Yeah.
Including
I'm sure Robbie Gordon would love
probably
to.
Robbie Gordon, probably
J.R. Hildebrand.
J.R. Hildebrand was the one that comes definitely to mind because he was well ahead, of course. I'm sure that Paul Tracy would say that the Indianapolis 499 would be phenomenal. So it astounds me that such a big event was kind of just shrugged off because there were no close races on track anyway. Okay, I guess.
Not ideal. All that to say, Josef Newgarden, in his first attempt, adds a Rolex 24, so he gets the Rolex and the Indy 500 in the same year, joining Ari Lindike, Dan Weldon, Dario Franchitti, and Elio Castroneves to become just the fifth reigning Indy 500 winner to capture the Rolex 24. And for Penske, it's first overall victory since 1969.
Now, was this the Rolex first 24. Year back? It wasn't the first year back, right? Yeah, for a while. Yeah.
And also note, Tom Blomqvist, as Nathan Brown had this a couple seconds short. He finished in second, becoming a back-to-back race winner. And Christian Rasmussen got a win in LMP2 for IndyCar. In fact, so Newgarden was teamed up with Felipe Nasr, Dane Cameron, Matt Campbell, and the number 7 Porchse Penske Motorsport Porsche 963, which won the GTP class, the overall winner. And then Christian Rasmussen was with Air Motorsport in the LMP2 class as well. So congrats to both of them. Notice how we talked about everything but the race results until now. But Newgarden becomes the 16th person to win the 500 and the Rolex 24 overall as well.
Congratulations to Josef Newgarden. It's been a heck of a 8-ish, 9-ish months for him.
And it was a big crowd of the Rolex 24. In fact, most attended in the event's 62-year history.
Makes sense with all the excitement around the manufacturers and all that, the new stuff. It's understandable. I did not watch a single second of the Rolex 24.
I watched about 20 minutes.
All right, you watched 20 minutes more than I did. I was too busy locked in on Puppygate.
Yeah.
To watch.
It was certainly something.
Yeah, it was something. I don't know what it is, but it was something.
We'd love to hear from you. We appreciate your feedback. As always, you can find us at newtrackrecordpodcast.com. While you're there, check out the store. We have T-shirts and stickers for sale. Also, you can sign up for the email list. It is free. You'll get an email after every episode or any special announcements. Plus, you can reach us on social media, IndyCar Podcast on Twitter /X, also on Instagram, on Facebook. Just search for New Track Record. And let's see, where Patreon. Patreon.com /New Track Record. Starting at just $1 a month, thanks to Xavier and others for their support. And as always, you can email us, newtrackrecordpodcast@gmail.com, or listen to the podcast on your favorite podcasting platform, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you listen to podcasts, all for free. Okay, mailbag time, and we do have quite a bit to get to because, well, a lot of people have thoughts on what happened in F1 in the last week, but we go back to before that and before all the chaos earlier in the week. And we had this story come down. Adam Stern tweeting, Mark Miles used a football analogy. The series is on the 50-yard line of its media rights talks. Penske executives pleased so far. Companies held talks include NBC, the CW, Fox Sports, all those expected, and then Apple, which is intriguing.
Yeah, it better be a hell of a lot of money if you're going to an all-stream service like Apple. We'll see. A few replies on this from Tyler Wong 65. Hope you stay on NBC at least. NBC being the main partner with the CW, serving as a channel for races that were previously on USA Network and Peacock. Gives the series a streaming platform and broadcast TV for almost all races. Run_Mark_Run says, personally, I hope to stay on NBC with Peacock. You can't say no if Apple throws a big check at you. What's one more streaming subscription anyways? Tyler_Allen, and you thought it was bad when people complained about Peacock. Jeremy from HBG saying, hope they stay on NBC /Peacock. And DeGuerra saying, I would love if that happened. I think that's in reference to Apple. So a lot of different thoughts on this. In terms of getting more money, not good news. Stern, with the quote from a media analyst saying, it's about expectations overall. They'll do fine. What do Roger Penske and Mark Miles think they're going to get? Looking to double, that's not going to happen in this environment. And that being going from $20 to $40 million. Man, it's just mind-boggling considering what Xfinity's getting from CW.
Yes.
I understand CW has more races. I get it. But even half of what CW gets would be $55 million. So, half of it, what Xfinity is going to get from CW is $55 million. So, I don't know. We'll see. I feel like NBC is an all or nothing thing. They're not going to allow. I don't think they're going to be interested in an ABC-like package where they keep the Indianapolis 500 and a couple races and another network has the rest. I just don't see that as something that NBC wants to do. So I feel whoever wins this, what we hope is a bidding war, will probably have all races, including the 500.
Yeah, if there's enough money. I mean, I sure hope so.
So we'll see.
It would be nice to have continuity.
Yes, which we've had, which maybe we've taken for granted.
I mean, at least on the same platform, and let alone the fact a couple years ago, I mean, it was almost, not all of them, but most of the races were on NBC. Now we've gone from majority to about half to now less than half. It's not ideal. A couple of replies on the Tesla Ganassi tweet. Jeremy from HBG saying, me staying out of this one. NK Harden saying, had to click forgot password just so she could go on and post that. It's been almost a decade since she last posted. And Dopizo Rodrigo saying, how long till we hear from the Cane Man? Hashtag plot twist.
Yes, the elusive Cane Man who got hit
Cane
from.
Man.
I'm sure the Cane Man got paid a sizable amount of money that's going to keep him quiet. Just a guess.
Yeah. Whole thing is crazy. All right. Now we get to all the thoughts on F1 and, of course, the Andretti team being not competitive, according to F1. I said same could be said for every current F1 team not named Red Bull. Brent Phelps said, any chance Haas sells to Andretti? I'd say no, because I think Andretti's already approached Haas on that.
Yeah, not anytime soon.
Poet Shevchenko, 99% sure it won't happen, but Andretti should redirect the funds raised for the F1 team into IndyCar, new chassis, grant for Chevy Honda to make a new engine, inject money for IndyCar to push very aggressively. It's separate money. I mean, it's just reality. They can't. It's different allocations.
Yep.
Jeremy from HBG, Red Bull, Ferrari, Mercedes, and McLaren would love to have an 8-car grid, split that cash 4 ways, and be done with it. I stopped watching F1 when they went to ESPN and do not regret it one bit.
Somebody that's not happy with Formula One and this not being the catalyst of that.
No. Ben Smith for real saying they can't be serious. Oh, but they are. NK Harden saying this is hilarious. If that really mattered, then they should have kicked out everyone not named Red Bull or Mercedes a long time ago. And adds, if this was about value and competitiveness, Haas and Williams would have been gone years ago. If they care about competitiveness, bring in a relegation system. If you can't get X amount of points in a year, you're down to F2. That's not what this is about, though, obviously.
Yes.
They say it's not personal, but it's hard not to view it that way.
Well, I don't know. I think personal feelings has something to do with it, but I do think the money is. Let's take, for example, Williams. And let's say they get
Williams, who's no longer has any association with Williams.
Correct, but it's still Williams.
Like what, private equity?
Yeah. Let's say they make $450 million per year from the pie being cut. Okay, let's say 450.
I'm laughing because there's no way to make it that much money.
But let's say it's 450. And then adding an 11th team, all of a sudden they have to drop down to 375. I mean, they're in mind to lose $75 million. That's a lot of money. So when you're talking millions and millions of dollars, I have a hard time when I'm Williams or Haas agreeing to something like that. Because, yeah, Andretti could add value. They could do this, could do that. There's no guarantees. So I do kind of understand where the teams are coming from. But unfortunately, the bigger thing is, this is my biggest issue, is the teams have way too much power in Formula One. The FIA should be able to say, you know what? Yeah, we're expanding to 11 teams or 12 teams. And you know what? You're going to have to deal with it. The model of Formula One in which the inmates run the asylum is just mind-boggling to me.
Yeah, and that's how their model's set up. And
that to me is the biggest thing.
Yes.
For me.
And this kind of dovetails off that. I tweeted F1's chances of staying relevant in the U.S. long-term just went poof. The fad bubble will burst, and it will be soon. A lot of replies on this one as well. Transocean Trojan saying, sad thing is IndyCar should be capitalizing on the F1 blunders like this, but they can't get out of their own way. LOL. Shevchenko pointing out that Andretti was top of trending, as far as an IndyCar team. Yeah, I guess. Jeremy from HBG saying, F1 isn't racing. It is an engineering and political exercise covered up with a bunch of pyro and ballyhoo. You got a foothold here because of a pandemic and a reality show. That is true.
Mm-hmm.
It's undeniable. Ben Smith for real saying the quotes from F1 actually made me laugh out loud. Jerry Bundle said, from your lips to God's ears, and InCap Teen 185, F1 sucks, F1 sucks. Come on, all together now, F1 sucks.
That said, one day later, everybody was talking Formula One.
Yes.
Because of the Lewis Hamilton Ferrari announcement.
Yes.
So all y'all people that said F1 sucks were probably the same people talking about Ferrari and Lewis Hamilton, because we were.
Yeah, well, it was a big story that you could not ignore. Now, in terms of how does it impact your interest in the sport with the rejection, well, I guess the delaying of Andretti's bid. Let's be honest. It was a rejection of the current bid. How does it impact your sport? I posted a poll. Nearly 38% of you said greatly impact. Nearly 30% of you said no interest before. 17% no change. 15% little impact. Skyscraper Tree 1. I wish Andretti was in, but let's be real. Of course, I'll be tuning in for the new season. So appreciate the honesty there. Poe Shevchenko saying, since F1 only wants competitive cars, I look forward to the 2-car grid, the season opener in 2 months. Beans B-Card blog. I had no interest before. Watch all the Drive to Survives last off-season so I could get into F1. Then the green flag dropped on the F1 season. It was boring AF. I stopped early in the season, unsure which is most boring, F1, soccer, or baseball. Okay. NK Harden saying, I gave F1 a shot for 3 years. It was a joke. Was excited to see a relatable team in the paddock, that obviously being McLaren. I have zero reason to watch now. Those that do, God bless you, must also love watching paint dry. If you want to see what F1 teams are like, go watch South Park Smug Alert. Classic episode there. Ram TX22 said, build up IndyCar to the level it enjoyed in the 90s and take it international. IndyCar has always had a better pure racing product than the F1 circus. That is true. Look, CART was challenging F1 globally in the early 90s.
Yeah.
Jeremy from HPG saying, I feel horrible for Mario. He seems legitimately hurt and betrayed. And that's my biggest takeaway, unfortunately, in all of this, is that this feels very personal. And after the way Michael Andretti was treated by F1 and his stint there, it's just I think it's hard to not ignore that.
Like I mentioned earlier, I think that was the biggest thing for Michael, is he just wanted to give this to his dad.
Yes.
And be able to be back in Formula One, and it's not happening anytime soon.
And then thoughts on Hamilton going to Ferrari in 2025. NK Harden saying, well, like they say, if you can't beat Red Bull, join a different team with lower expectations so you can blame the team and not your poor performance. Jeremy from HPG saying, Pelot's hair is poofing out like Drew Barrymore's in Firestarter while thinking of his Ganassi contract. And Norling F saying, this getting dropped today is just F1's way of trying to cover up the fact they just dissed Andretti. It was convenient timing.
Yeah,
I'll
say that for sure. Well, I mean, when I asked you and you pointed it out, and it's the only logical answer on why Lewis Hamilton is going to Ferrari, is it's every prospective F1 driver's dream to race a Ferrari badged car in Formula One.
As a lot of people have pointed out. Like,
yes,
he has a huge Ferrari collection, so this shouldn't have come as a surprise.
It shouldn't, yeah. I think we considered him a Mercedes lifer just because of all the success he had. And people saying, well, you know, Mercedes isn't, or Ferrari isn't better or worse than the Mercedes. Why leave? It's the
Every
brand.
driver wants to. I mean, look, Vettel drove at Ferrari. Alonso drove at Ferrari. Now it's going to be Hamilton. I mean, the top guys all want their shot at Ferrari, because if you can win with Ferrari, I mean, you're legendary.
Yes.
And Hamilton, I understand, is already legendary, but this would elevate his career to another stratosphere.
And the guy you feel sorry for is Carlos Sainz.
Yeah.
I mean, because he is, the number one driver at Ferrari. Now he's out in 2025. He won't. I mean, is it going to be a simple swap? Does Sainz go to Mercedes? I don't know if it's that easy. We'll see.
All right, that wraps up the mailbag. Time to get to news and notes. And here's some good news. And I believe these tickets are gone, but IndyCar Nation members got discounted thermal tickets.
Oh.
They were offering a discount to $500 as opposed to the $2,000. $100 were available. Nathan Brown of the Indy Star had a good write-up.
So there'll be at least 100 people there.
Yeah.
What you're saying.
So I'm not sure if there are any left, but obviously a good move, because I think they're struggling to sell tickets. Go figure.
Yeah, what a shock.
Also, Ganassi unveiled Kiffin Simpson's number 4 Journey Rewards car. Blue, yellow, good-looking car. We'll see how he does in his first season. You had hybrid testing at Homestead, Miami earlier this week, as we record here on Friday, February 2nd here in the U.S., but a successful test. In fact, I think Alexander Rossi was saying on his podcast that they had no issues. It was a very successful test with that, and so they're looking at things moving forward. And when you don't have failures on the hybrid unit, that is a positive sign.
Yeah, I mean, it's a good thing. It's better than some failures. I just like, why is it taking till late January?
Now, Rossi did say the lap times were an acceptable amount slower compared to the previous week without the hybrid installed. But again, think about it. Weight, right? But he did say a lot closer in pace than it had been previously. So they're making progress.
And we're not sure if they had the new aero screen. They probably didn't have that.
Yeah, that yet. I'm not sure of.
I'm wondering, have we heard anything about having the new aero screen by St. Pete?
I believe that's supposed to be on board.
All right.
But there were nearly 1,500 laps by 10 drivers, no stoppages.
Good.
You compare that to the last hybrid test in November, also at Homestead, Miami. A driver was towed in 6 times in one day. That from MarshallBird.com. So
not ideal.
They made a lot of progress, and they're about a tenth of a second faster from just over a couple weeks ago.
It's progress, but it's extremely late progress, and still only 10 of your drivers have even turned laps in a hybrid engine car.
Now, in terms of the horsepower on demand, something in the 60 horsepower range likely. So that's good to know.
All right.
But yes, excited for this to be on board. It's just a shame it's going to be mid-season.
Yes.
I don't think anyone's denying that.
Of which they haven't said exactly when it'll be yet. Just post-Indy.
Yes, correct. Other notes, Nathan Brown with a good write-up on IndyCar trying to put together a NASCAR-like charter system. The biggest aspect of all of this is they're still working on the framework. You know, are we talking 25 charters, 22? Teams that don't have a charter could still be eligible to get Leader Circle. They're all trying to figure this out, but it's a good write-up talking about this. And as Indy Oreo points out, CART had franchises in the late 90s, but the team owners soon cashed out their stock, followed Toyota and Honda money to the IRL. So something to keep in mind that moving forward. Meanwhile, IndyCar in Argentina, I'm just going to throw out there, it's probably not going to happen because the MotoGP race, the Argentina GP that would have been held at the same track, has been canceled due to budget cuts. This isn't a surprise. They will not replace the race on their calendar. For IndyCar, if they have the race, Leader Circle payouts would go from $1.1 million to $1.3 million due to a promoter sanctioning fee that would up it for teams that participate, for Leader Circle members. But again, I have my doubts of this happening.
Yeah, me too.
Now, there was a lot of private investment that Ricardo Nichols talked about. But again, if they need any amount of government funding, they're not going to
get it. I mean, you could try to spin it and say, well, maybe the MotoGP race is going away because they're going to finance the IndyCar race. I just don't think that's the case. I think there is a tightening of the budgets down in Argentina with the new president. And he's got bigger things to worry about in Argentina than auto races. I mean, as every leader of a country has more important things. So unfortunately, as we've mentioned before, I mean, when you go to these locales that are very much reliant on government money to finance the events, if the government isn't down with it, there's not a lot of private investment, private equity like we have in the United States and some of these countries to say, oh yeah, we'll step up and promote this race and front 10, 15, $20 million for it. It's just not realistic in countries like Argentina.
No. Continuing on, Pietro Fittipaldi will share reserve driver duties with Haas F1 for the upcoming season with Ollie Behrman. So this had been talked about before, but congrats to him on that. Elsewhere, we finally know the streaming platform that will air season 1 of 100 Days to Indy, Paramount Plus.
Okay.
Coming to the app on February 16th, so that's just 2 weeks away. That's pretty exciting because they offer global distribution of that. And CBS having the Super Bowl, I mean, you just wonder, will there be any promotion of that?
No, there will not be. There will not be.
But that will be just days after the Super Bowl. So
it's not happening.
There's anything here. Now, U.S. streaming rights heading there next month. So, okay, sorry. That is U.S. streaming rights headed there next month. You would also think that would be the spot for global distribution, as Nathan Brown, the Indy Star, points out. So either way, that's a big win. I'll
keep an eye on. When I heard this, I went through Paramount Plus because they have like a coming soon tab. Didn't see anything.
Okay.
Went to sports, didn't see anything. Did see Formula E Unplugged, which is in there, which I've never heard of before. Then I stumbled into the fact that they have classic Nickelodeon video or game shows on there, like Nick Arcade and Double Dare. And I was like, you know what? I can't. This is a rabbit hole I cannot go down right now because I will not be able to pull myself out. So I left that alone. But I did peruse it. Didn't see anything about 100 Days to Indy, but it is still a couple weeks out. So I'll check and have an update next week.
And again, if you didn't catch season 1, assuming it goes on to Paramount Plus, at least here in the U.S., it was a pretty good show, I must say. It was an interesting show. They did a good job. You just hope they can get global distribution, which is something they're working on, and that's the next step.
We'll see.
A couple of concert announcements. St. Pete will have Bret Michaels performing during the Firestone Grand Prix St. Pete weekend. Meanwhile, Indy 500 Snake Pete lineup is set.
Do we know anybody?
So I didn't realize that I knew one. So when I first looked at it, I didn't recognize any of the names. Excision, Dom Dalla, Griffin, Sullivan King, and Timmy Trumpet. Then I realized, wait, I know
Timmy Trumpet. Yeah.
So I knew one, but this is the first time that I think I only knew one of the artists.
Really?
But
now Timmy Trumpet is a DJ?
I guess. I had no idea.
I just thought he played the trumpet.
The Narcos song.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
Very popular, especially at sporting events. But
yeah.
The lineup for the Snake Pit is there. Tickets available now. Again, ims.com/snakepit. So,
but that's just a bunch of people that don't even care about the racing.
Yeah. They're just there to party. They're not watching cars on track.
It's like the people that go to Iowa for the concerts. They don't care about the racing. So what?
Who cares? I certainly do not. And
now, do you think we'll get the requisite Dale Earnhardt Jr. and Steve Letard in the Snake Pit or around the Snake Pit? Because that's become like ongoing.
Did they get rid of Rutledge Wood?
Was he part of the broadcast last year? I don't know. Last year it was Earnhardt and Letard because it was Letard's first time down there, and that was like the running joke for the segments when they kept going back. I'm just wondering if they're going to go back to that well again and say, Dale Earnhardt Jr., you're going to be around the Snake Pit, because it's kind of a tired trope at this point.
And one other note, and someone involved in racing sent this to me, so I want to pass this along for our younger audience. If you're between the ages of 18 and 23 and want to pursue a career in automotive or motorsports journalism, PR, marketing, sales, business development, or sponsorship, you can apply for the Rod Campbell Award. Applications due on February 20th. You can go to rtd-media.com. You can apply online on there. It's a pretty simple form. And if you have other questions about this, 317-270-8723 or email Mike at rtd-media.com. Again, Mike at rtd-media.com. So I'd like to thank AJ for reaching out to us and giving us the lowdown. He was a former recipient of the award, and I think it's very important to promote young people, obviously, getting into racing.
Yes, and when people ask, how do I get into it, blah, blah, there's a prime opportunity.
Yes. All right, time for tweets of the week, and boy, do we have several.
Okay.
After the news. So we start with Scott McLaughlin. It's all right. Take your 10 teams who will have 27 cars within a second in a few weeks. Having zero idea Sunday morning who's going to win the race. All the very best. Also, this from Callum Ilott. Not sure what else is missing to get an F1 entry. If they couldn't get an entry, I don't see how anyone else ever can.
Fair.
That's true. And then Graham Rahal, who said back in September of 2022, F1 is an elitist sport. They don't want us. Remember that. They want U.S. companies' money. They want wealthy U.S. individuals' money. They don't care about the rest. Always has been that way. Always will be. That was in reply to this, saying from Dave Moody, again, also in 2022, F1 has made it very clear for many years they have no interest in U.S. drivers, just U.S. dollars. And Graham saying, oh, wait, another thing I said and got tremendous hate for it. You guys seeing it yet? Is it making sense yet? Andretti Global should be in there, but read below. So follow up and
very much so.
Spot on. All right. Random split air driver of the week time.
All right. We're going to the Champ Car. What is it? Well, Champ Car World Series. Oh, it's the Bridgestone presents the Champ Car World Series powered by Ford 2005.
Favorite name.
Yes. And going with Marcus Marshall.
Who?
Yes. Marcus Marshall, who competed in the majority of that season for Team Australia. The only race he did not participate in was the season finale in Mexico City. And throughout the season, his best finish was 8th in Edmonton, 9th in Vegas. And Team Australia was a racing team. It was started by Craig Gore and John Fish. It bought into Derek Walker's Walker Racing and scaled back after 2007 and had affiliation with KV. But Team Australia with Marcus Marshall, one and done in terms of the Champ Car World Series. He also did a lot of GT racing, Formula Ford, throughout the 2000s, did a lot of Australian racing. He's from Tasmania, Burnie, Tasmania, to be exact. But that's all he did. He did a lot of V8 supercars as well. But 2005 was his lone season in Champ Car. One and done, high of 8th at Edmonton.
And competed in a handful of Bathurst 1000 races, last competing in 2011. Yeah, you go to Champ Car post 2003, the final year of kart, you're going to find a lot of people I've never heard of.
Yes, of which Marcus Marshall fits the bill. So this week's random split era driver of the week, Mr. Marcus Marshall.
All right, that does it for us. For Justin Kinney, I am Caleb Hatch. Thanks for joining us on another edition of New Track Record Podcast.
Podcasts by Federated Media.